Welcome to another of our contested collections series, in which we delve into the museum's ethnology collections for a closer look at some of the hidden histories and untold stories that these objects can tell us. Today we'll be looking at some items in the museum's collections which were brought back from West Africa, hidden inside a cargo of bonny Palmol casks, which were being shipped by Messrs Crosfields and Son Ltd for use in their soap manufacturing business. The items mainly consist of jewellery, needles, knives, tools and weapons made from brass and iron. Using these objects as a starting point, we will go on to look at how the trade in palm oil during the 19th century also fed into the slave trade, and the links locally that we can find evidence for that demonstrate both an involvement in the slave trade and also campaigns against slavery. So what are the connections between Palmol and Warrington Museum? Well, Arthur Crosfield donated many of the objects in the museum's collections. He was part of the local soap manufacturing family, which we know as Crosfields, or more recently Lever Brothers. It is believed that employees from Crosfields factory may have visited the Botany Gallery at Warrenton Museum, particularly the section on plants used in soap making, which includes palm oil, nuts, cake and oil. In allowing the employees to visit the gallery, the Crosfields were in effect upskilling their employees, allowing them to learn about the materials that they would be working with in their jobs. One of the original purposes of the Botany Gallery at the museum was in fact to be used as a teaching tool. Soap making using palm oil was once one of the town's major industries. By 1865, Crosfields was the fifth biggest soap producer in the UK. The site of the Crosfields factory is, or rather was, at the end of Museum Street. The soap and soap powder making industry in Warrington dates to 1814 and originally used beef tallow, but this was later phased out in favour of palm oil, imported via America and West Africa, and almost certainly involving slave labour. So what is palm oil? Well, palm oil is a vegetable oil derived from the pulp of the Palmol plant fruit, primarily the African oil palm and sometimes the American oil palm. It is an important part of the West African diet and has long had a major place in the slave trade in its use by slavers as food provisions for the Atlantic crossing. Up until recently, many people may never have heard of this oil. However, over the past few years, the social and environmental impact that the cultivation of palm oil has had on the planet has been brought to light. There is now a growing movement to utilise alternative natural resources to reduce the overexploitation of this resource and the related negative effects on the planet that the cultivation of palm oil leads to. Palm oil forms one of the main ingredients in many food products produced and consumed throughout the world. This has attracted the concern of environmental groups, given that the cultivation of these palms has led to vast areas of forests in Indonesia and being destroyed and the development of an oil palm monoculture. Before the discovery of mineral oil in the USA, palm oil was an important industrial and railway lubricant, competing in the market against animal tallow. Palm oil was also used in wood combing and as a lux in manufacturing of tinplate. Sadly, the deforestation has led to the habitat loss of 3 surviving species of orangutan, including the Sumatran orangutan, which is listed as being critically endangered. Grown only in the tropics, the oil palm tree produces high quality oil used primarily for cooking in developing countries. Palm oil is a very productive crop, offering a far greater yield at a lower cost of production than other vegetable oils. Global production of and demand for palm oil is increasing rapidly. In fact, palm oil production has risen sharply over the past 5 decades thanks to the fact that it is fairly resistant. Annual production quadrupled between 1995 and 2015, and it is expected to quadruple again by 2050. Data from the United States Department of Agriculture shows that nearly 85% of palm oil production occurs in just 2 countries, Indonesia and Malaysia. In 2019, Indonesia produced 42.5 million tonnes, or 58% of global supply, while Malaysia made 19 million tonnes, or 26%. Palm oil has been referred to as the world's most hated crop due to its association with deforestation in Asia. It has long been a staple food in a region stretching from Senegal to Angola along Africa's western coast. It effectively entered the global economy during the 1500s aboard ships engaged in the transatlantic slave trade. During what was referred to as the Deadly Middle Passage, palm oil was carried aboard the ships as a food source to keep captives alive. Traders are also believed to have smeared palm oil on the skin of captives to make them look young, smooth and sleek before they are sent to auction. Before the 16th century, Europeans were not deeply involved in slave trading on the western African coast. However, there was some movement of African labour to Madeira and the Canary Islands by the early Portuguese explorers from 1470 onwards. The Portuguese were also the first to use African slave labour in gold mines and on sugar plantations on the small equatorial island of São Tomé. These plantations became the model for future sugar estates in the West Indies. African exports at this time included gold, palm oil, nuts, yams, pepper, ivory, gum and cloth. The ports in the Niger Delta during the 1870s were at the centre of the palm oil trade. 50 years earlier, in 1830, 90% of British imports from this area were palm oil, and 96% of palm oil imports at this time came into Liverpool. Liverpool traders brought oil from every part of the West African coast, at least up to the 1820s. The oil was traded by African brokers right along the coast from Sierra Leone to the Congo. The Liverpool trade certainly helped two ports to flourish in this area thanks to the palm oil trade. These were Old Calabar and Bonny. The Liverpool traders were very much at the heart of the growth in British imports. Palm oil became the most valuable single item traded from West Africa into Britain. During the mid-19th century, the port of Liverpool was responsible for nearly a half of the UK export and 1/3 of UK imports of palm oil. In the 1870s, the real structure of Liverpool's post-abolition African trade network began to become apparent with the growth of the West African palm oil trade. So how was the palm oil being used in the hinterlands of Liverpool? Its main use in the Liverpool hinterland was as a fat in soap and for the manufacture of candles. During the 1830s, the use of palm oil in this industry increased rapidly, partly due to new techniques in bleaching. The demand for soap in Britain was stimulated by new notices of cleanliness that emerged in the early 19th century. Soap was also important in bleaching, dyeing and calico printing in the cotton trade. In the 1820s, Liverpool, Runcorn and Warrington together produced 37% of Britain's hard soap output, and in 1837 they produced 67% of soft soap. Between 1801 and 1851, soap consumption per head in Britain doubled. This was helped by changes to soap duties in 1853. The soap industry was certainly growing from strength to strength. That's the end of our penultimate episode of Contested Collections. Next month we'll be finishing the series by looking at the British colony of Natal and how sugar barons made large amounts of money through the exploitation of Indian labourers. For our discussion, we'll focus upon some beadwork objects that are on display in the World Stories Gallery and which were brought back from Natal. We hope that you can join us then.